American people are perfectly capable of having their say on this issue. So let's give them a voice. Let's let the American people decide.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell on the floor of the Senate today, explaining why that body will not hold hearings on President Obama's nomination to fill the spot on the bench once occupied by Justice Antonin Scalia. Here to talk with us about this from Newsmax Washington, Hannah Smith, an attorney with the Becket Fund for Religious Liberty. Hannah served as a clerk for Supreme Court Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito. Hannah, we really appreciate your time tonight on Newsmax Prime.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So what do you think of the announcement by Mitch McConnell that the Senate is not going to take up this nomination?
Well, first of all, I'll say the Becket Fund is a nonpartisan public interest law firm, so we don't do politics. But what we do is religious liberty. And we hope that whoever the nominee is that's confirmed ultimately will be a justice who on the Supreme Court shows a strong support for religious freedom for all Americans. We've had two very important cases in recent years where liberal and conservative justices have joined together in unanimous opinions upholding religious freedom for all Americans. And I just hope that whoever the nominee is that's confirmed will be able to join in that great tradition of the Supreme Court.
Hannah, you are such an adroit attorney, and I appreciate what you're saying about the Becket Fund. Let me see if I can reformulate the question. Not asking you to hurl partisan brickbats, but for the institution of the Supreme Court and constitutionally with the Senate having advice and consent on nominations, is the Senate acting in constitutional fashion?
Well, you're right. I have clerked at the Supreme Court, not once but twice, and it was a wonderful experience to clerk for such great jurists like Justice Thomas and Justice Alito. And what I learned from clerking at the Supreme Court is that it's an incredibly collegial place. Those 9 justices all get along very well. They're there for life, and they have learned to work together in a very collegial way. And I think a great example of this is a concurrence, actually, that Justice Alito wrote in the Hosanna Tabor case, which was one of our great cases, a unanimous opinion. And Justice Alito said in that concurrence that religious organizations are the critical buffer between the government and the individual. Now, Justice Kagan joined him in that concurring opinion. And I think that's a really important thing to note, that people who have such vast differences ideologically and their worldview and their feelings on the law, that they have such vast differences that they can come together and agree, like Justice Kagan and Justice Alito did in that concurrence, that religious organizations serve that critical buffer. And right now we have a case before the Supreme Court involving the Little Sisters of the Poor, and they are in exactly that kind of an organization. One of these organizations that serves as a critical buffer. They care for the elderly poor, and these are people that fall through the cracks of our social service net, and yet, you know, they exist to help these elderly poor live until their last breath. The Little Sisters will sit at your side, hold your hand, and sing to you until your dying breath. These are the very institutions these are the very institutions that Justice Alito and Justice Kagan were referencing when they said that these social institutions are critical buffers that support American society. And so, having clerked at the court, I can tell you that those 9 justices, they can agree on a lot, and they need to be able to agree on the fundamental protections for religious freedom.
And why?
And I hope that whoever the nominee is will do that.
All right, fair enough. Hannah Smith tonight from Newsmax Washington. It is worth noting that there is a political process. There is a role in the Constitution for the Senate to play. But Hannah, being a very intelligent attorney with business before the High Court, tonight wanted to talk more about history and about the Becket Fund, and we can appreciate that, Hannah. We hope you'll come back and visit us again real soon. So, you heard what Hannah had to say about collegiality on the court and religious liberty. I'd love to get your comments. Send them to me at newsmaxtv.com/comments. Our political panel's next.